All right, we are back. Let us see if this time we're cooking with gas. So no one's on yet. If you're watching this as a replay, please type in replay. And okay, we got Annette here. Awesome. Approve. That should be easy. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are having a late start because we had connectivity issues. Hey, welcome.
Hello.
Good. Okay, so we're on top of each other, and maybe that's because of the way I'm holding my phone. For some reason, when I turn it the other way, I don't have success, so I'm not really sure what's going on. But we're on, finally. Thank you so much for joining us. So I've had to restart so many times, so I'm going to go ahead and give my intro again because we're just going to have to do it like that. So I will keep this short and sweet. Welcome to Women's Financial Empowerment Group. I'm your host, Ruth Agbeloso. It's so good to have you here. We also have a private Facebook group, Women's Financial Empowerment Group, and in parentheses, WFEG. So that's how you can find the group. If you're a woman, that's all you need to qualify to be a part of the group. So you can go ahead and request to join. I am a personal financial coach. In other words, I actually, oh my gosh, I'm a financial empowerment coach is actually my title. And what that means is I provide financial literacy and also financial coaching services so I can help with budgeting, goal setting, whatever it is that has to do with finances. We talk about it and figure out your situation and see how we can get you to where you want to go financially. So I'm going to put my link in the description of this and you can click on it and make an appointment. I want to welcome my guest, Annette, with us, Annette Harris. She's a good friend of mine and also a financial coach. She is a veteran, and that means so much to me that she's a veteran. And so her specialty with financial coaching is working with veterans. But not only that, she works in HR as her full-time job and also provides resume services and employment guidance. So she does all of that stuff. She has a lot going on. But I just wanted to welcome you today, Annette. So sorry for the hiccups with the tech. I'm not sure what's going on, but lately Facebook has been a little bit tricky. Hopefully this will work out. I'm going to attempt to turn my camera and see if that.
That just made you sideways.
Yeah, you can't do it. All right, I tried. You know what? It's an experiment. We'll have to get back on when tech is actually the way it's supposed to be. So for now, we have a Brady Bunch thing going on.
Yeah.
Less people, but it's kind of giving me that Brady Bunch vibe with us being on top of each other. But it is what it is, and sometimes these things don't work out perfectly, but we're not looking for perfection. We're just trying to get the information across. So welcome, and welcome to the viewers. If you're watching the replay, please type in #replay. If you're on live, please tell us you're here so that we can interact with you personally. So without further ado, Annette, do you have anything else that you'd love to tell us about yourself?
I think you said it all. Yeah, I think that's about it. Yes, I'm a financial coach, and I've been working in human resources for a little over 13 years. So I like to bridge the gap in between that and in my personal business as well. So if you need your resume updated or your LinkedIn profile updated, you can reach out to me. One of the ways that we earn income is by moving on to that next step in our career. So I'm a resource that can help you prepare for that next step in finding a new employer or just advancing in your career as well.
Awesome. And what I wanted to do, let's see if it'll work out for me, is to put it right in the chat so that if anyone sees it, they can just tap on it right away so that they can get help. And I'll put my information on the screen here in a little bit. But yeah, so thank you again, Annette, for coming. So we'll just dive in. We may have a few people, but with starting and stopping so many times, it's possible we may have lost a few people. So I really thought that this is a good topic. I've been talking about saving all month. And so one of the challenges that some people face when it comes to saving is that they have so much debt. So with so much debt, the question is, how can I possibly save if all of my money is going towards debt? So I figured this would be a good opportunity for us to share with our viewers some of the things, some simple tips that you can utilize to help you with either your debt issue or to avoid having so much debt to begin with. So I think a lot of this is preventative, but if you're in the situation where you have already amassed some debt, hopefully this will also be helpful for you. So the first thing that I have on my list that I wanted to talk about is understanding the total cost of borrowing money. Because borrowing money is not just, okay, I'm going to borrow $50. Let me not say $50 because I don't think people can really wrap their heads around those small numbers. $50,000. So if we say we want to borrow $50,000, it's more than just $50,000, isn't it, Annette?
Absolutely, it is, because you have to take into account, what interest are you paying and how long are you paying on that loan as well when you borrow that money.
Right, exactly. And a lot of people don't take that into consideration. They just think, okay, I want this amount, so this is the amount that I'm going to borrow. And as a result, they end up in a situation where it's like, oh, it's more than what I wanted. But they use it. So that's the thing. It's not like they don't use it. They end up using it, and it's more money than they were even imagining that they wanted to pay back. So
absolutely. Like I know for our home loan, I'll just give an estimate. We paid $150,000. That was the price of the house. But then when you put into that 30-year mortgage, you're paying, 4% interest on that $150,000 mortgage over the next 30 years. So you may end up paying an additional $75,000 in interest when you look at how long you're paying for it. Is it 15 years or is it 30 years? And what's your interest rate? And then is that interest rate fixed or is it variable? And that also goes, it's the same thing for student loans as well.
That makes sense. And that will take us to the next tip when it comes to student loans is just borrow what you need. Like, honestly, school is very expensive and there's a lot of costs involved in it. But the last thing you want is to amass more debt on yourself. So for instance, if your student loan, if your tuition and books and all that stuff, room and board comes up to like, let's say 20,000, you don't want to take out 30,000, right? Because
absolutely,
that's just too much debt. And they will offer you more money, but you have to be the one to be like, no, this is the amount that I need, and advocate for yourself. Do your research so that you know what exactly you need before you even ask for anything, so you can stay within a certain parameter.
Right. And I think I've had a couple of family members that have gone to school and they got that $50,000 student loan, but they only needed $30 for their education. And then, in the end, it's going to it takes some people 40, 50 years to pay off their student loans. So just like Ruth said, just borrowing what you need, even though they're offering you $30,000, it's not what you need. They're just giving you what you're eligible for, based on
Right.
your credit rating or your parents' credit rating. So, a lot of college websites have the estimated cost that you'll need to get that 2-year or that 4-year degree. So, look at those costs and compare that to what you actually should sign on that dotted line. And you can always reject it up your student loans in part. You can say, well, I don't need $50,000 right now. I only need $15,000. And then you can always go back to the financial aid office if you do need additional money based on your needs. And they can always rerun the numbers and add additional onto your student loans as well. But again, looking at those loan amounts and that interest rate is another key, because there's that, the Stafford loan, and then where you have the subsidized and then the unsubsidized loans as well. So
Right.
just paying attention to the differences between the two and then the terms of those loans.
Yes, definitely. And you know what? You can supplement. So if you don't even get the full amount that you need, you can supplement it. There's work study, there's other programs where you could supplement it, or even get a part-time job. And there's definitely scholarships. And I highly recommend people get scholarships. So that's another thing to reduce your debt is go after scholarships. And if you're a parent and you know that your child is going to graduate in a year or two, definitely go ahead and start right now with researching various scholarships. So and I say, when I say scholarships, I mean, there are so many out there. So if you know that your child is left-handed or has some sort of disability or has had another parent die of a certain disease, I mean, there are just so many different scholarships out there, but the key is to start researching early so that you'll know what the requirements are, and then you can go ahead and start applying for that. And I think that there are also scholarships out there. Not I think, I know for a fact that there are scholarships out there for adults as well. So if you are returning to school, there are so many scholarships out there, but like I said, you have to do your research. And also there are some institutions that offer scholarships. So that brings us to another tip is when it comes to choosing a school, and this is not all about college, so bear with us, but there are so many ways you can reduce debt when it comes to college. But it's probably wise a lot of times to choose a local college as a public college as opposed to a private college, because a lot of times you're going to spend a lot less money if you go to a public versus private.
Absolutely. So I went to public institutions the whole time I went to school. You see my degrees are back there, and I ended up coming out of it, debt free. So each one of my classes, the maximum amount was $1,400, and that was an in-state college. But then there's a couple of universities, these big universities, where you could pay $7,500 for one class. So it's just determining if you can get that same degree from a public institution as opposed to a private institution, and you'll have that same piece of paper at the end. But it is based on your situation and what degree, what college name you want on that degree. But it'll eliminate you getting further into debt, or getting into debt that it's going to take you forever to pay back. Like Ruth said, looking at that free money, when you apply for your FAFSA, you may have a Pell Grant, and there's that free money there. And then with the public and private institutions, some of your employers may cover that cost. So if you use your employer to cover the cost and you're going to a private institution, you're going to have a lot more money out of pocket. They may cover one class or a portion of one class. So looking at that public, private, in-state, out of state, so that you can reduce your out-of-pocket costs.
Yes, and the other thing about that is that a lot of colleges give a discount to people who are local. So if you're a resident, then you can pay a lot less too. So that's another thing to look into to reduce your debt, because you could pay, thousands less if you're a resident in some cases. So definitely do your research. I hope you're getting a trend here that it's something that you want to prepare. When it comes to managing your finances, you want to be prepared. You don't want to just let whatever happens. And that's not a way for you to save money. Okay, so the next point I wanted to talk about, so we already talked about scholarships, and that was my next way. The next one is to pay more when you're paying your debt. So pay more than a minimum. So if, for instance, your minimum payment is $900, see whether or not you can squeeze out an extra $25. And you might ask, like, Ruth, how is that like decreasing your debt or reducing your debt? But how it reduces your debt is because you won't have to pay that interest. So you pay less in interest if you pay it off sooner. And yes, that means that you're paying more money up front because you're putting more money into it. But at the end, you're actually spending less money. What do you think about that, Annette?
Absolutely. And, that's on your credit cards. That could be on, your home. So for me, for example, we paid more than the minimum for our home, and we applied that extra amount to our principal payment. So with that, we were able to save over $100,000 in interest in paying off our home mortgage. And we didn't even count the cost when it came to our cars, because we paid more than the minimum. Instead of paying at $300 a month, we were like, let's pay $350 instead. and then let's add that onto the principal so we could reduce what we were paying in interest. And that builds your credit score as well, because the creditors, the credit agency see that you're paying more than a minimum towards the loans that you have taken out as well.
Exactly. And you guys, you and your husband achieved debt freedom last year, right?
Yes, we did. October last year, we
Right.
ended up paying off our mortgage in 8.5 years. And I do like to tell people, yes, we achieved debt freedom, but there's no, if you go back into that, you can always go and get a car or get, purchase something else that you're investing in, if you're investing into real estate. So being debt free doesn't mean that you have to stop, using credit cards or purchasing other items that you want to invest in, to building your financial future.
Right. But that was one of the methods you used to pay off your mortgage quickly, right? By just
Yes.
paying more payments. Paying more money
Yes.
each month. So I think that is a really helpful tip there. And that leads me to another point is paying twice a month. So instead of just paying, like, say if your bill is due on the 15th, you can pay again on the, I don't know, give me a date, the 10th or something.
Yes.
What do you think about that one, Annette? Because I think that's something that a lot of people have utilized for mortgages too, for mortgage payments.
Yes, absolutely. So like for your credit card, you can pay twice a month. Typically, you get, some people get paid twice a month, some of it's weekly or some monthly. But if you're paying that bill once a month, you have that money that's sitting in your checking account. You see that it's there, and you may be like, okay, this is what I have to spend. But if you pay on your credit card twice a month, then you're able to reduce the urge to spend that money. There's another caveat to that too, that if you have the money at the end of the month and you aren't trying to avoid interest payments, go ahead and, pay it, when your bill is, before your bill is due. But if you're trying to reduce your interest rate, if you're trying to increase your credit score, paying more than, once a month can help you do that.
Right. Awesome. I love that, because I think a lot of people see on the statement that, this bill is due to be paid on the 15th. And then so they just stick with that and just say, okay, I'm paying it on the 15th, or I'm paying it on the 14th, or I'm paying it on the 16th. Some people live on the edge. So, so they just focus on, what is on that bill. And they just focus, okay, I'm paying what they tell me to pay, and I'm paying it the day that they tell me to pay it. And so they don't think outside of the box. And so we're here to let you know that, yes, you can pay more often. You can pay the whole thing if you can afford to do that. And you can definitely, what was I going to say? Pay more. What did I say? Let me recap.
Pay more than once a month.
Pay more than once a month, and you can pay the whole thing if you want to. You don't have to just go by whatever the statement says.
And I know that may be hard to remember, but like if you set up those automatic payments, have it to come out on the 10th and the 20th of the month, just set it up automatically. If you're using it to pay your bills, you know how much it is. If you're using it to pay for those purchases, just setting up that automatic payments so that you don't forget and pay on the 16th when it's due on the 15th.
Exactly. And that's another point. Like, keep track of your bills. Like, for some of us, we have a lot of bills, and so things can get like hairy, when you have a lot going on. You have to pay for your child's private school, and you have to pay rent, and you have to pay gas, and it just like adds up. So the point is to keep track of your bills, either in a spreadsheet or some other type of way. And like Annette said, I think, like you rightly said, Annette, I think it's an awesome idea to set up automated payments. For some people, they're not that really comfortable with that, or they can't do that with every single thing they have to pay. But to me, that's like the number one suggestion, is to set up the auto pay. That way you don't have to really think about it and risk forgetting. However, just having everything in a nice spreadsheet or written in a notebook if all else fails, or something like that. But definitely you want to keep track and know what's due at what time. And you still need to keep track, even if you have automated payments, because you want to make sure that the money is there to pay for those bills. So that is an awesome tip. And I think I've definitely seen a change in my finances once I implemented that. And so did Annette, right, Annette?
Yes, absolutely. And
So,
I work with a lot of clients, and they say, well, I have some elderly clients, and I ask, them, how do you keep a track? And they're like, I log onto my bank every morning to check. So, that's a part of it too, seeing what, if you may have missed something. So, checking your checking account to see how you spent money that month, using your debit card or using your credit card. So, like, I'm a proponent of Excel, like you are, Ruth. I say it's old fashioned, but a lot of people are using it. It's either
yes,
that or QuickBooks. And it'll, you can put in those automatic calculations. Excel has formulas built in where you can just copy and paste your debits and your credits into your account. So it eliminates those late fees that you may have to pay.
exactly. And that's an awesome way of reducing your debt if you don't have to pay late fees and all that other stuff, because it just adds on to what you have to pay. So it's all about, being on top of things, being in control of where your money is and how you make payouts and stuff like that. And I like that you mentioned Annette, going on I'm sorry, going on your bank account's website and checking what you have. Welcome, welcome. Please excuse our Brady Bunch setup here. We're on top of each other. We had technical difficulties and we just went for it. Please definitely say hey in the comments so we can know who you are and welcome you officially. So yeah, it's definitely good to check. I've had situations happen where there was some glitch in the system and more money came out than was supposed to, or less money came out than what was supposed to pay a bill. So you won't know that if you're not in the habit of checking on these things. So maybe you don't want to check on it every single day, every now and then, or what have you, but you definitely want to check to make sure that things don't go crazy. Okay, hi Sephora. Welcome. Yes, we're doing it Brady Bunch style. We just need a few more children to make this official. But
but you mentioned keeping track. I had an individual reach out to me because they had like a double deduction, for their bill, and they didn't understand why. But they were like, I logged into my checking account and I see that my insurance company deducted me twice. How do I work through getting that money back? So we worked through that process. So if you have that extra deduction that's coming out, that can ruin your budget for the rest of the month, depending on how much it is. Like, I think one time I paid my mortgage twice and I was like, oh, didn't mean to do that. So, I didn't mean to, but it happened. But I had, we had that money in the savings. We were able to transfer it, but keeping a track of, those automatic payments and, how you're paying them on Excel can eliminate those emergency situations where you may run out of money.
Yes, because especially for those bigger expenses, you don't want to pay more on your mortgage than
Yes.
I mean, you don't want to pay double unless you plan to pay double. Like, I'm all for paying double. Yeah, pay double if you can afford to, but if you can't,
Yes.
then you'll feel that'll be a real ouch moment. So just be on top of things and check things. That's a really good tip. And another tip I would say that I feel is, not a very popular tip, but buy less house than you can afford. So if they tell you you've qualified for, say, 400,000, don't get a house that's 400,000. Try to keep that number as low as possible. 250,000, depending on your market, depending on what you're looking for, but try to keep it lower because you definitely want to have that cushion. And in order to reduce debt, you have to start off with less debt, right? So if you start off with a huge home payment, it's just going to get worse because remember, not only do you have to pay for the cost of the home, but you also have to pay for the utilities and all the other things that go into owning a house. So that is a tip that, I know that a lot of people are not in favor of that because they have a dream of what they want to do. But, and definitely, I'm not saying don't get your dream house, but it depends on your situation, right? Because maybe you're in a position to get your dream house and you're not going to feel the pinch. But if you're going to get your dream house and it's going to be a nightmare type of dream, then I would suggest avoid the nightmare by getting less of a house, getting less rooms if you can put up with less rooms, or getting less of a square footage or something, and just see what the sweet spot is, what you can live with, what you're comfortable with. You know, have that conversation with whoever you're moving in with if you're not moving by yourself, and see, you know, what can you cut out to just reduce your debt.
Absolutely. You know, they say live within your means, but I say live within your needs. You know, like you said, you may not need that 5-bedroom house. You may need a 3-bedroom house, and that fits your family's needs. And also, it's within your budget. Like this is our dream house, but we are paying the cost of it because the ceilings are so high. So it takes a lot to heat. It takes a lot to cool off. The yard maintenance is it's a lot. So I'm like, let's hire your, you know, there's all these things you have to think of. And you know what? Do you even need a house, or are you fine, you know, living in an apartment or a condo or something like that? Because that may be what's within your needs. If you are an elderly individual and you can't get out there and do that yard work, you know, you may have to end up paying someone to come do it. So living in a condo may be best for you. And if the same thing goes for cars, Ruth, like,
Yes.
you may need a new car, but do you need that Lexus, or does a Honda Accord work well for you? You know, it gets you to work, and you pay less to get to work because the gas is expensive, the repair on that car is expensive, and you know, you're still making that same amount of income, but you're paying for that Lexus bill or that BMW bill.
Exactly. Exactly. And, you know, the funny thing is that, you know, when you go to buy a home or you go to buy a car, most of the time they're not going to try to sell you the least amount that you can afford. And we talked about this in our conversation, and that, so I just wanted to share this, just the whole emotions that go behind buying a house, for example. You know that you have a budget of a certain amount, but then the realtor shows you something that's 100,000 more, and you're like, oh, and you're like falling in love and all this stuff. And then before you know it, you have more house than you need. You have a bigger mortgage than you ever wanted, and things like that. So it's important to kind of take the emotions out of things and keep to your budget, because once you get off budget, then there goes your savings. You know, if you have certain savings goals, the only way to really achieve those goals is if you stick to a budget. And that means something different to different people, because like I said, you can get that dream home if you're on track to do so. But if you're not ready for a certain type of home and you jump into it, then that becomes a nightmare home. And so many people are house poor. So many people are car poor. You know what I'm saying? You know, you have this wonderful car, but then you can hardly survive because all of your money is going into the car. So that's definitely not something that we advocate for, putting all your money into. Not saying, and I always like to say this, that not saying you can't get what you want in life, not saying that you can't have your dream car or your dream home, but it should be something that you've worked towards, a goal that you've worked towards, and not something that you were just bamboozled into, or you just like fell in love and so now you have to deal with this hefty debt that you weren't prepared for. So those are just some of the things that we want to share with you today, because you know, we see so many people just deep down in debt, and sometimes just with some small tweaks, just some little simple things, you can change that direction that you were going into, and you can free yourself. I like to compare debt as having an ankle bracelet on, and I don't mean the fancy smancy ankle bracelet. I mean the ones that the court makes you wear because you're a I've seen people, I've worked with people with those on, and it's so heartbreaking because sometimes you may want to go certain places and do certain things, but you can't because you have this ankle bracelet on. So debt is like that, because it stops you from being able to go a certain length of where you want to go. So it's important to reduce that debt so you can receive some freedom, you know? And like you said, Annette, rightly, it doesn't mean that you'll never have a credit card or you'll never purchase anything on credit or anything like that. It doesn't mean that, but if you reduce your debt, then you can have more freedom. You can have more money saved up to where you can achieve those savings goals that you have in mind. So it's all about freedom, and it's all about taking control of your money. And that's what I'm all about, right, Annette?
Yes, absolutely. I love that analogy, the ankle bracelet. It's like that. You know, they say marriage is a ball and chain. Yeah, it can stop you from doing those other things that you have in your life, because you are tied down to that debt that you're required to pay for 5 years, 30 years, or that credit card debt as well. I did want to note too about the buying less house. That also, if you are looking to buy a home, I think you mentioned earlier, you know, having that list, you know, of what you want for that home and sticking to that list too. But then also like adjusting your goals as well, because those upgrades can add up. Yes. We had a certain amount of things that we wanted when we built our house, but you know, me and my husband, we were talking together. We're like, okay, let's strike this off and let's get this instead. You know, I wanted those little toggle switches, and he was like, you know what? That's something we can do later. We can install it ourselves later, and we won't end up paying for it for 30 years. And that's similar to the appliances. So I wanted to get a double oven. But I was, you know, do I really need a double oven? You typically only use that around the holiday time when you're cooking large meals. So when I talked to the realtor, they were like, okay, you get this oven here, but if you want to get this upgrade, you're gonna have to pay an extra $7,000. But I'm like, do I really want to pay an extra $7,000 over the next 30 years when that oven is only gonna last between 5 to 15 years? So just think about, you know, are you going to be paying on that oven that you don't have anymore after it's long and gone? And, you know, think about adding in those additional upgrades once you can start doing those projects on your own, and that you are in a better financial situation so that you don't put yourself deeper into debt when you're purchasing that house and paying on these appliances when they're long gone.
That makes total sense. We have one more tip, and then I'm going to read the comments, because since we're in Brady Bunch style, it's hard to see the comments. Yeah. So actually, I'll read the comments first, and then we'll go to our very last tip. So Zipporah is here with us, and she said a lot of things. So let me go back. You didn't say too many things, so don't worry. You said a lot. You said, and that's good. I love the engagement. So she said she got on a little bit late. She'll catch the beginning later, and she forgives us for our Brady Bunch style. Thank you so much. Love you. Yes, live within your needs. That's a great way to remember. That's a great way to remember it. Love it. Awesome. Yeah, I love it when Annette says that. That really makes sense. Okay, and she also says everything in its season. I wish I had learned this. I wish I had learned this lesson much younger. However, I can now teach my kiddos the importance. Sorry. I don't know. Yeah, you guys do not know the struggle I am having today.
The importance of living within their needs in the
Thank you. I cannot even, it won't even let me like press it.
It keeps disappearing.
I just don't know what's happening today. But it's okay. We're not going to freak out. I'm not going to freak out. So thank you so much, Zipporah, for those comments. And if you're watching this and you have any additional tips, feel free to share it. But our last tip, I kind of mentioned this already, come to think of it, is stick to your budget. Don't spend more than what you budget for. So I want to highlight that, even though we kind of mentioned it before. So if you know that you intend to spend a certain amount on, you know, whatever area of your budget, stick to that amount. That's a great way to reduce your debt. And it's okay if you've made mistakes before and you didn't do it this way. Now we're offering you some tips. See which ones you can use and which ones you can share, because honestly, just because we made mistakes, that doesn't mean that what we're learning now is not valuable and we can pass it along to someone else. So I'm really grateful, Annette, that you stopped by to, you know, help me talk about these simple ways to reduce your debt. Again, if you missed the beginning, Annette helps out with sorry, she provides resume services, and she works with veterans managing their money. So her link is in the chat, and I tried to put it in again, but like I said, I've been having some technical challenges, and I also attempted to put my link on the screen in case you need help managing your finances, but I know that it probably isn't there. How are we doing? Zipporah says, thank you both. You are welcome. Thank you so much for being with us. And, you know, we hope that we can do another one of these without some of the technical challenges that we face today. But I think it's worth it, even if we're like wearing brown paper bags on our heads and we're getting the message. I think that is, to me, I think I'd rather hear a good message that's going to help me, even if the people who are spreading the message are a hot mess. I'm speaking about myself, not Annette, because I think it was my tech that was having the issue. But anyway, that's all for today. Please go ahead and leave comments in the comment section. Any questions that you have that we can answer right after this, if anything. And definitely let us know a little bit. Yes, I know. Everything is just going crazy, but that's okay. We're done. Thank you so much, Annette, for joining.
All right, thank you for having me.
Love you. Yes, we'd love to have you back another time.
Absolutely.
And enjoy the rest of your day. Bye, everybody.
Bye.